Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to another Ghost of Tsushima update. Today we have update 1.15 bringing in a nice number of changes, some loot buffs, and we also have to discuss about the future of the content in Ghost of Tsushima, as there's probably gonna be a content drought in the upcoming future. Of course, I'm getting ready probably for a sequel of Ghost of Tsushima, so let's talk about that in this video. As always, if you enjoy it at any point, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video. Now let's begin with update 1.15. It should be live right now for everybody, and it is about 1 gigabyte, a little bit over a gigabyte in size download. Now we do have the message over from Sucker Punch on Twitter, and it pretty much contained the following changes. First of all, we do have a really nice loot buff for Nightmare Story missions and for the raid. So they've adjusted gear drops in Nightmare Story missions and the Tale of VO chapters so that key 105 gear is more likely to drop for players that are 105 key level and above. So now if you have 105 on your character and you play through that, you should see this happening way more often if you're playing these Nightmare Story missions and of course the raid on the Nightmare difficulty. But kind of raises the question, does this still apply to the survival mode? I didn't get a chance to play this yet. I think that it should, because out of all of the challenges, the survival is probably the most, let's just say, challenging, because it just requires a ton of effort to reach the last wave over there, considering that there's so many dangers along the way, with like the arrow carts, the enemy spawning, a ton of Onis, and you constantly getting overwhelmed by the enemies. Now of course, on top of this, the patch also contains other bug fixes and improvements, and they've also fixed a number of disconnect issues that a number of players had. But this is pretty much it with the update. If you log in right now in the game and if you play it, you're gonna be able to get all of this, but this is pretty much it in terms of updates. And this kind of also brings us to the next point on the list, which is gonna be all about what's about the future of Ghost of Tsushima, and even more so the Legends mode in Ghost of Tsushima. So as much as this sends me to say it, I think that update 1.15 that we got today is probably gonna be one of the last updates that we will ever see for this game, maybe with the exception of a couple more patches here and there that might fix a few of the lingering problems that still exist in the game, but I'm pretty sure that they are fully done with it for now, and you don't have to believe me on this one. At least in terms of content, we now know that the raid was literally the last piece of content that Ghost of Tsushima will get in its entirety. And we also have this recent interview from like a week ago that Kind of Funny Games posted on their YouTube channel, so I'm also going to link it down below. But around the 12-minute mark, they had an interview with the lead game designer over at Sucker Punch, and he pretty much confirmed that yeah, the raid is going to be the last piece of content that they will implement for Ghost of Tsushima, and they've also called it their culminating content. So yeah, really interesting that they've decided to do this. Of course, the game had a ton of success, but they will continue to have the weekly rotating Nightmare challenges for the story challenges and the survival challenges that will continue on a weekly basis, so you can go ahead and take your rewards, play with other players, maybe get the leftover cosmetics that you might still need, and maybe even aim for that 100% Legends mode completion that I'm kind of still trying to do on my own. But you know, next month is gonna be pretty busy. We're gonna have the PS5 and the Series X. We're gonna get a ton of new games like Spider-Man, Godfall. Then in December we're gonna have like Cyberpunk, and you know what, I'm gonna cover these games. We have to make that transition, but I'm kind of saddened by the news. Like, let me know down below what do you think about all of this. Like, what's your opinion on all of this? I really thought that they would push forward a little bit more with the Legends update, because they had a ton of support even the first weekend once they released the Legends mode. Like, even before the raid, I believe that we had some really crazy metrics, like over 11 million matches played in just the first couple of days of the Legends mode, and there were like billions of creatures being killed and whatnot. So I was kind of thinking that they would probably implement some more patches. I would even be like super ready to support them with money, because this was one of the best free updates that I have ever experienced in any game, at the very least in 2020, and probably in the past few years as well. So yeah, but it makes a lot of sense for why they're doing this. Most likely they are kind of focusing their entire attention to whatever sequel Ghost of Tsushima is going to get in the next few years. And we do know for some time now that there is going to be a planned sequel for Ghost of Tsushima. The game already sold absolutely amazingly in its only first week of release. So according to the recent news, we know that it sold over 2.4 million copies within just 3 days of its release back in July, and it was also one of the fastest selling new PlayStation IPs with over 1.9 million digital units sold according to Super Data. So absolutely amazing metrics. I'm pretty sure that this is way bigger right now, at the very least 5 million units sold by now, maybe even more, and I wouldn't be surprised for it to eventually reach like 10 million by next year, maybe when there's like more promotions, maybe if there's going to be like a Game of the Year edition. I'm not really sure if there's going to be one, but there was definitely a big sellout right now with the Legends mode as well, so it could very well be closer to 10 million than we initially anticipated. But another indication that there's going to be a Ghost of Tsushima sequel that we know of is the fact that back in October we had a few hints, at least in part, thanks to these job listings over at Sucker Punch, one of which was for a narrative writer, and especially so a narrative writer that has a desire to write stories set in feudal Japan and has knowledge of feudal Japanese history. So I think that is more than telling that that would be the case. But now the next question is, what could the sequel to the first game possibly be about? Like, Sucker Punch definitely has a ton of options over here. They could follow up with the immediate history and just follow up with the second and much larger Mongol invasion of 1281, which was basically 7 years after the events of the first game, which kind of also raises the question, would Jin in this case be the main character still? Like, we don't really know what his age is. Like, it's been speculated that he's either like in his mid-20s or maybe early 30s, so he would probably be closer to his 40s if we get to see the second Mongol invasion, case in which would he still be the protagonist anymore, or would we get to play with maybe a different kind of character, maybe somebody who studied under Jin's guidance and kind of learned the ghost ways and continues with them, maybe with something even better than what Jin was capable of doing back in his days. But again, it's all a matter of speculation, and I would also reckon that if we were to see the second and larger Mongol invasion, we would probably also see some of the other islands in the Japanese archipelago as well. Like, we would probably even reach eventually the mainland Japan if it were to follow the entire invasion throughout. So it kind of sounds really interesting. I kind of want to see more of this. I want to see where the story brings us to, and yeah, we're probably gonna see this game sometimes in 2022 probably, by the looks of it, maybe even after that. It depends how long they take to do it, but since the first game was already set in stone, they kind of have the engine, they kind of have all the resources, probably the second game won't take as long to fully develop, and we might get to play it sooner rather than later. But again, this is it with the latest news. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.